5:14 a.m., Barron County, Kentucky. 12 federal agents stacked on the front door of the Blackwater Ridge Main Lodge, weapons up, breaching tool ready. K9 handler 40 feet back, dog already pulling at the lead. The command came through earpiece. One word, go. The ram hit the door at 5:14 and 6 seconds inside. A reception desk, a bulletin board covered in photographs of children on horseback, a framed mission statement about healing through nature, the smell of hay and coffee and something that didn't belong. 23 children were somewhere on this property. Agents had 90 seconds to secure the primary structure before the second element hit the barn retention. Tonkin 30 hook resolution tees. What brought a joint FBI-HSI-Kentucky State Police tactical team to a 280-acre equestrian property at 5 in the morning wasn't an informant tip. It wasn't a surveillance drone or a financial audit. It was a farrier, a man who trims horses' hooves for a living. A man who noticed 3 things that didn't add up and decided to write down a license plate number. That plate number would eventually connect to $94 million in fraudulent grants, 6 states, 2 foreign countries, and a basement nobody was supposed to find. This is the Blackwater Ridge operation, November 2025 to May 2026. Blackwater Ridge Equestrian Academy appeared in Kentucky state records in October 2025, a therapeutic riding program for at-risk youth. 280 acres of bluegrass farmland in Barron County, 40 miles southeast of Bowling Green. The property included a main lot, 4 residential barn structures, an outdoor arena, and a converted outbuilding listed in permit applications as storage. The promotional materials were professional, glossy brochures with photographs of children in riding helmets, smiling beside quarter horses and Appaloosas, a website with a mission statement, a donation portal, and testimonials from unnamed families. The Academy described itself as faith-adjacent, a program rooted in discipline, community, and the healing power of animal care. By January 2026, the Academy reported 28 enrolled students. None of those 28 appeared in any Kentucky public school enrollment database. None appeared in the state foster care registry. None had active files with Kentucky's Cabinet for Health and Family Services. 28 children, documented on a website, absent from every state record that should have tracked them. That anomaly would take weeks to surface. In February 2026, nobody at the state level had connected those dots yet. Retention knock point. Foremont Stakes Bend, February 11, 2026. A farrier named Dale Hutchins drove his truck onto the Blackwater Ridge property at 8 a.m. for a one-day job. Routine hoof trimming. He'd been called through a livestock services broker and had no prior relationship with the academy. He expected horses, maybe a barn manager, maybe some kids watching from a fence rail. He got something different. 3 children led horses out of the rear stable. Hutchins noticed their wrists first. Each child wore a white plastic wristband with a number printed on it. Not a name, a number. The kind of wristband you see in a hospital or a processing facility, not on a farm. He said nothing, kept working. An adult male walked the perimeter behind the children, not supervising the riding, watching the exits. One of the children, Hutchins estimated her age at 9 or 10, flinched when the adult raised his voice to call her toward a different horse. Not startled, flinched. The movement of someone who had learned what a raised voice precedes. Hutchins finished the morning's work and was directed to the north stable after lunch. There he noticed the dormitory barn, a long rectangular structure, windows covered from inside with what looked like heavy cloth, and on every exterior door, padlocks. Heavy gauge, keyed padlocks on the outside of what the brochure called residential housing. You lock a barn door to keep animals in, or to keep people from leaving. At 4 a.m. the following morning, Hutchins was still awake. He'd parked down the road after finishing the job, telling himself he wanted to think. What he actually did was wait. At 4:12 a.m., a white cargo trailer pulled out of the Blackwater Ridge service entrance, running without its secondary marker lights. He photographed the license plate with his phone. The next morning, he forwarded the photograph to the FBI's Louisville field office through the Bureau's public tip portal. No name, no callback number, just the plate, the date, and a 3-sentence description of what he'd seen. That anonymous tip sat in the Louisville queue for 11 days before an analyst cross-referenced the plate number against active investigations. What came back stopped her mid-shift. The trailer plate had generated license reader hits across 4 states: Tennessee, Ohio, Indiana, and Georgia over the previous 14 months. It had appeared in the periphery of 2 separate HSI trafficking investigations, both of which had stalled for lack of a geographic anchor. The investigators on both cases had the trailer's movement pattern, but not a home location. Hutchins had just given them one. Louisville notified HSI's Nashville field office the same afternoon. By the end of the week, Blackwater Ridge had a case number. What stays with me about this case is how long the academy ran in plain sight. 7 months. Grant applications that looked legitimate, a functioning website, a board of directors that included a retired state senator and 2 megachurch pastors. They built the infrastructure of credibility first, and it worked. January 2026 grant records, reviewed after the fact by FBI forensic accountants, showed 3 child welfare nonprofits had collectively provided $94 million to Blackwater Ridge through a pipeline of pass-through organizations. 2 of the nonprofits had been incorporated within 18 months of the Academy's founding. The third was older, legitimate in origin, but had undergone a quiet leadership change in mid-2024. Its new executive director had routing authority over disbursement decisions. The $94 million did not fund therapeutic riding. Grant money flowed in, sat briefly in Academy accounts, and moved in tranches of $200,000 to $800,000 to a network of LLCs incorporated across Delaware, Wyoming, and Nevada. From there, the trail fragmented into wire transfers, cryptocurrency conversion, and cash withdrawals across multiple jurisdictions. Retention caught point. 50% mid-roll hook. I went through the grant applications after the indictments were unsealed, and one detail kept coming back. The applications described a licensed clinical staff of 14, therapists, equine specialists, residential supervisors. The state licensing filings for the academy listed 2 employees, not 14, 2. That gap between the numbers is the entire fiction the operation ran on. Put yourself in the position of the Joint Investigation Team in late February 2026. You have a trailer plate, 2 stalled HSI cases, and a tip from a farrier you can't identify. You don't have a warrant, a victim statement, or a single child's name. The academy is incorporated, grant-funded, and has a board member who previously served in the Kentucky State Senate. Moving too fast risks tipping off the operators. Moving too slow risks the children on that property. The FBI and HSI agreed on a controlled surveillance protocol. No physical presence on or near the property. Remote monitoring through legally obtained traffic and commercial camera feeds on the surrounding road. Network, combined with aerial imagery from a contracted aircraft that flew standard agricultural survey routes over Barron County twice weekly. Neither the flight pattern nor the camera access required a warrant. Over the following 6 weeks, the surveillance picture built. The white cargo trailer made 4 more departures from the service entrance, all between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. 2 times it returned within 18 hours. Twice it did not return. Cross-referencing those dates with HSI databases flagged arrivals at 2 separate locations in Tennessee and Georgia, a storage facility outside Chattanooga, and a poultry distribution warehouse in Valdosta. Both had appeared in prior trafficking intelligence with no actionable connection. Now they had a connection. Here's the part that doesn't make sense on the surface. The academy had genuine donors, real people who believed the mission statement, attended fundraising galas in Louisville and Nashville, and wrote checks. The pastoral board wasn't entirely composed of knowing participants. At least 2 members appear to have been recruited, precisely because their names added legitimacy with no awareness of what the operation actually was. The exploitation ran in both directions. The victims inside the compound and the unwitting donors outside it. By mid-March 2026, the investigative team had enough for a Title III wiretap application on 3 phones associated with the Academy's operations director, a man named in the eventual indictment as Marcus Ellery Voss. Voss had no prior criminal record. His background listed him as a former private school administrator from Indiana with 18 years in youth residential care. The record was largely fabricated. His actual employment history was 12 years, with 2 gaps that corresponded to periods investigators were still working to account for. The wiretap ran for 41 days. Voss was careful on calls. Operational details went through a signal account on a secondary device that agents couldn't immediately access. But a pattern emerged in the call metadata: timing, duration, the geographic clustering of towers his phones hit during overnight drives. 3 of those drives matched the cargo trailer departures from Blackwater Ridge within a 2-hour window. Voss was moving children personally. The obstacle came in late March. The wiretap produced a conversation between Voss and an unidentified caller that included a reference to the basement count being wrong. Agents interpreted this as evidence of a concealed space, possibly a holding area not reflected in the Academy's architectural permits. The problem: the building permits on file for the outbuilding showed no basement. A basement that didn't officially exist couldn't be included in a search warrant affidavit without exposing the surveillance methodology to legal challenge. The investigative team needed architectural confirmation. They obtained thermal imaging of the outbuilding through the same agricultural survey aircraft. The thermal signature showed a subgrade temperature differential, consistent with an enclosed underground space approximately 800 square feet in area. It was under the tack room. The warrant affidavit was filed on May 14, 2026, approved May 19. Execution scheduled for May 22, 2026 at 5:14 a.m., timed to the pre-dawn window when both the trailer and Voss's vehicle had historically been on site. What do you think? Did the oversight systems that let this academy operate for 7 months fail the children inside, or was that failure built into how these grants are approved? The tactical plan involved 3 simultaneous elements. The primary entry team, 12 agents, FBI SWAT with Kentucky State Police support, would breach the main lodge and secure any personnel present. A second element of 8 agents would move on the north stable and dormitory barn. A K-9 unit would sweep the perimeter. The third element, 6 agents with a structural engineer on tactical call, was assigned to the outbuilding, specifically the tack room, and was briefed on the probable concealed basement. Entry at 5:14 a.m. was simultaneous across all 3 points. The main lodge yielded 2 individuals. The academy's founder, identified in the indictment as Raymond Cassell, and a female administrative staff member. Both were taken into custody without resistance. Cassell asked, according to the arrest report, whether there had been a complaint. The dormitory barn yielded 12 children. Agents found them in 4 connected rooms behind the padlocked exterior doors. The rooms contained bunk beds, minimal personal belongings, and no visible means of exit except through the exterior padlocked doors. Every child wore a white-numbered wristband. The third element reached the tack room at 5:21 a.m. The structural engineer identified the floor seam within 4 minutes. The hinged wall panel in the rear of the tack room opened into a stairwell. Below, a converted basement space, concrete block walls, ventilation through a single overhead duct, 11 children. Total rescued, 23. Ages 6 through 16 from 6 states, Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, Tennessee, Georgia, and Florida, plus 2 foreign nationals whose documentation indicated origins in Central America. At the time of rescue, none of the children had been reported missing by any agency in any jurisdiction. They existed in a documentation gap. No school records, no medical files under their names, no active missing persons cases. The Academy's internal records used numbers, not names. Their arrests on site totaled 3. Cassell, the administrative staffer, and a male residential supervisor found in the north stable. Marcus Ellery Voss was not on the property. His vehicle had departed at 4:51 a.m., 23 minutes before the breach. Whether he received a tip or left by chance is a question the ongoing investigation has not answered. As of the unsealing of the case file in early June 2026, Voss remains a fugitive. The U.S. Marshals Service has an active warrant. There's a line in the federal indictment that reads almost like something invented. Under the description of the concealed basement, the document notes that the space contained, among other items, a printed daily schedule posted on the interior wall with activities listed by time and number, not by name. A schedule, posted on the wall of a hidden room, for children who had no names in any record, only numbers on their wrists. Here's an unpopular take. The 3 nonprofit boards that approved and distributed $94 million to this operation should face institutional accountability, not just the individuals who ran it. Signing off on 8-figure disbursements to an 18-month-old organization with no audit trail is not an administrative oversight. It is a failure that enabled everything that followed. Whether it rises to criminal liability is for prosecutors to determine. But the organizations themselves, not just their compromised leaders, should not come out of this intact. The federal indictments filed May 22, 2026, cover wire fraud, grant fraud, conspiracy, and forced labor. The $94 million pipeline ran through 3 sham nonprofits with combined operational histories of less than 3 years. Forensic accountants have traced approximately $31 million to identifiable accounts. The remaining $63 million has not been recovered. Some of it moved through cryptocurrency conversion points in 4 countries. Some of it, investigators believe, predates Blackwater Ridge and is connected to the same network the 2 earlier HSI investigations had been tracking. The 2 foreign national children required consular coordination for identification. One was identified within 72 hours. The second identification process, as of the case file unsealing, remains ongoing. There are names that have not yet been confirmed, a count of victims that may not be complete. Will this network surface again in another form, another state, another institution that looks legitimate from the outside? Comment yes or no. Dale Hutchins, the Farrier whose tip started this, has not been publicly identified. The FBI's public statement after the unsealing thanked an anonymous member of the public for providing critical initial intelligence. He photographed a license plate at 4:12 in the morning because something he saw during a routine workday didn't sit right. 3 children, numbered wristbands, padlocks on a dormitory door. Those details cost him nothing to notice. What he did with them cost him sleep, probably, and the decision to act on something he couldn't fully explain. The Blackwater Ridge Equestrian Academy operated for 7 months. Its grant applications are still available in Kentucky state records, cached before they were flagged for removal. The photographs on its website show real horses, real bluegrass fields, a real fence line against a real Kentucky sky. The children in those photographs have not been publicly identified. Marcus Ellery Voss has been missing since 4:51 a.m. on May 22, 2026. The $63 million that hasn't been traced is still somewhere, and the demand that built a fake school on a real farm with real padlocks on real doors has not changed. Subscribe if you want to follow how this case develops. The manhunt for Voss, the nonprofit accountability hearings, the recovery of the untraced funds. This isn't finished. The academy is gone. The network it was part of isn't.